80% of the average individual's asset allocation to real estate is 80%. What do you think about it?
It's a very, very important subject that you've raised. And I think it is extremely dangerous. Let me repeat that, extremely dangerous from a long-term point of view to have too much invested in real estate. I can understand, if possible, owning the house in which I live. And if I'm fortunate, maybe a secondary residence in the mountains and the countryside for weekends and so forth, but not as an investment program. And the reason I'm so concerned about real estate from a long-term point of view, and we've touched on it already, is demographics. So an investment only has value if you can sell it. But if you can't sell it, it has not just a lower value, but it actually has no value. There are villages in Japan which have been abandoned because the people who used to live there have died.
Right.
Their children have gone to the cities. So there's no interest in buying an empty property.
Sure.
If there's nobody to actually buy. And so if you have money locked up in real estate, at some point in the future, not only will it decline in value, it will lose all its value. There's nothing to protect it in the long run. You cannot avoid that inevitability. The only thing that can change is if all of a sudden people start having 4 to 5 children. Well, in Korea, in Japan, families are not replacing themselves. The birth rate is less than 2 per family.
Korea is unfortunately lost all countries.
Really?
Yes,
Yes.
Korea is very problematic.
Yes.
So that's exactly, it makes the problem much more difficult.
Much more difficult.
Yeah.
And so China's now experiencing the same problem.
That's
the
right.
Chinese people invested in the last 20 years an enormous amount in real estate.
Right.
Thinking that they could rent their apartments. And I'm told by some Chinese friends, they just bought them, even not thinking about renting. They just thought, well, it'd be real estate.
Right. They automatically thinking that, okay, price will go up.
Yes.
That's I couldn't understand.
And the value of real estate and the prices of real estate will only go up if there are more buyers than sellers.
That's right.
But if you have more sellers than buyers, prices aren't going to go up at all. And if you have no buyers at all,
then
you've got
nothing,
no price.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's going to happen in the next 6 months, and probably in the next 5 years, it's probably okay, real estate. But I don't think it's a particularly good investment, even on a 5-year view. I think at the moment, we may see we must be close to the peak, given the demographics.
Right. The Korea is already happening, coming down sharply.
Coming down.
Yes, I thought. So it's very difficult to make people think twice buying the real estate.
Yeah.
And then you have to have a balance. Having a house you're living in is fine, but not like 80% of your total asset retirement.
It's a shame.
Yeah, right.
It's a shame. It's a huge opportunity, particularly going back to our earlier
Thanks
conversation.
for saying that.
With the stock market so low, I mean, I would, if I were a Korean and I had a portfolio of real estate companies or investments, frankly, given the valuation gap between the equities and the dividends they're generating, so even if the stock market goes down, I'm still getting the dividend income.
That's true.
And my real estate portfolio, I would sell not 30%, not 50%, I would sell 100% other than my house and my country house. Everything else I would sell because of 5 to 10 year view. And And I'm very confident about that.
Okay.
And in our world, which is such an uncertain world, and there's so many things we don't know, there's some things that we have a high degree of certainty. And these things include death, and they include supply and demand, and they include the absence of demand and the implications of that.
That's right.
And demographics. It takes a long time for demographics to change, but they evolve mathematically. People get older, and you can calculate that.
But I think that it's more like the Korean people's mind that you have to own the house. The renting the house is a waste of money. That's the really something that I never understand. Renting a house is a waste of money, but having a house is fine, even if they are spending so much money for the interest expenses. But still, they think renting is not a good idea. So it's very hard to convince people that you don't have to own the house.
You don't. And to own a house, either you have to have the money to be able to buy it, and if you don't have the money, then you have to borrow it. And if you borrow the money, you have to pay interest.
Right.
And if you buy the house, then that money you can't invest in the stock market.
That's right.
And
opportunity cost.
A huge opportunity cost. Especially if I'm right that in 5-10 years' time, your real estate's value will decline substantially. But you're right. This business of renting and owning, people don't think logically about.
That's
it.
right. They become so emotional. Right. I have to
I own my house.
Yeah, that makes them more comfortable about the future.
Yeah.
Wow. What what is a recommendation for good Korean investors? This is something that you have to do. It's something that you shouldn't do that. Do you think of anything?
Yeah. Well, I have quite a controversial view about fixed income investing. I have never been in favor of buying bonds. Especially
because of your equity.
Because I'm an equity guy. But there's also a logical reason.
Right.
And I'm talking really about government bonds. Because basically, I think governments mislead investors. On the one hand, other than a small number of countries, Argentina being an example, governments technically do not go bankrupt. So they exploit that reputation that they won't go bankrupt. And therefore, if you buy a government bond, it is a safe investment.
That's right.
But what people don't understand is that the real purchasing value of the money that you invest in the bond, and let's say your bond has a 5-year maturity, that in 5 years' time, the government will give you back the nominal value of your bond. But the nominal value of your bond in 5 years' time, its real purchasing power will have declined by the rate of inflation during that 5-year period. Now, obviously, the lower the rate of inflation, the less the decline in the real purchasing power. But even if the rate of inflation is only 2%, after 5 years, you've lost 10% of the purchasing power of the money that you invested. You didn't make 10%. You just lost
That's right.
at least 10% in purchasing power.
Sure.
And who benefited? The government, because the government paid you back your money after 5 years, but with today's money, which is worth less than it was worth.
Yeah.
And so that one is absolutely clear. You're being actually ripped off by the government. The government is actually stealing money from you.
Okay.
They don't tell you this.
And then also you have to pay tax on the interest.
And you also have to. Okay, I didn't know that. And, yeah, of course you have to pay income tax. That's right.
Right.
So I've never been enthusiastic. I've never recommended bond
Right.
investing, except in the very short term. You know, if you have some savings and you know that in 6 months' time or in a year's time you need to make a payment.
In Korea, still that the bank deposit is the most safe asset class. So their retirement money is all in the bank deposit in Korea.
And how much do banks pay on the bank deposit?
Almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
The preserve the principal.
See,
That's why they think it's safe.
Yeah, I understand that's why they think it's safe. But what they need to understand is the same point I just made about bonds.
Right.
Even in the short term, you should only put money on deposit if the rate you are getting is at least the same as inflation. But if it's less than inflation,
You're losing money.
you're losing money. And then what should you do with it? You should buy equities. Unless you need the money on a short-term basis. But if it's money that you can,
For your retirement.
yes, then
You have to-
you mustn't put it in cash because the value is going to erode.
So if you are 20s, I recommend the Korean people that you have to have 100% in equities.
Well, absolutely.
Do you agree?
I have a daughter. She's now 35. But from the age of 10, I would give her savings, and I would explain to her, even at that tender age, that some of her savings I was putting on her behalf into a mutual
Equities, yeah.
mutual fund. And that was a habit that I started at the age of 10.
Right.
Not 20, not
Right,
30,
right.
but at 10. And now she is a 35-year-old, and she has a very comfortable equity portfolio.
Sure.
And by definition, you know, it's
Actually, I'm telling Korean people, that right after your children born, then you have to
Open an
do
account.
for that. Yeah, Korea is a popular legal to
Yes.
open up the account for young minors.
yes.
That's
yes.
why I'm trying to
Yeah,
talk
it's
with the
wonderful.
people.
It's wonderful.
Glad that you understand. Okay.